The MTG podcast is a virtual space for women and men in the tech and creative industries.
Tune in as we put it all on the table, sharing authentic life truths as we sustain and empower each other in search of our tribe.
We're more than a designer. We're more than our name badge. We're more than the work we produce.
Welcome to the More Than Graphics podcast.
We're that tribe.
Hello, welcome everybody to the More Than Graphics podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Cicely.
And I'm super excited because we are talking about vitality. This particular topic is so important for women, especially when it comes to tech and women in creatives. But I do want to acknowledge just for 2 seconds, our friend Priscilla, who's not here with us today, but she's with us in spirit. So I just want to bring that up. Hey girl, we're thinking of you. But as we kind of go into this topic a little bit more, I kind of want to dive into my thoughts on this word. Right. We talk about vitality a lot for women. And when it comes to, I want to say even like in the medical professions, Cicely, this is like I don't want to say taboo word, but it's kind of like a hot word, right?
Right.
I kind of want to like get your opinion a little bit on your vision for vitality.
Yeah. So I think that in terms of health, especially like just being a person of color, a Black woman, a woman who has to navigate the healthcare space as a like healthcare provider, as a nurse, and then as a patient sometimes as well. I think when I think of vitality, like I just think from the things that I see, I want to see healthier people overall. I know you have some statistics from the CDC about that, but just collectively, like, yes, we're able to live longer. But it's not really because we're taking better care of ourselves. It's more because science is improving. And I know that like there's always this push to like, oh, let's take out, mental health days. A lot of tech companies are kind of, those are buzzwords for them, like mental health Fridays and take a break Wednesdays and no meeting, what Mondays or whatever. But I think to really put that into practice, like you have to address health disparities as well. Like I can't be holistically overall well until I'm getting, healthcare that doesn't have to do with racism, until I can comfortably give birth and not have to worry about dying while giving birth in the United States. Like all of these, and like my mental health can be taken care of as well. And there has to be space both in my life that I make, but then we have to create a culture surrounding overall wellness and getting healthier. So vitality to me is being able to have kind of all those pillars in place. So like a community support for that, work support for that, government and societal support for that, because the support is not there. It's very much grind till you die kind of culture. Don't take care of yourself until it's too late, or until, it's never too late as long as we're alive, but, until you've run yourself into the ground so far that now you've got to pick up the pieces and get back to some sense of, being healthier or getting back on the right track. So I would like to look at vitality as moving away from that mentality of like, let's fix it after it's broken and let's be preventive and let's worry and let's, start these things sooner so that we don't have to get broken. We don't necessarily have to get to this point because we've been taking care of ourselves and, having a healthcare system that supports us and having a work environment that supports that better healthcare. And I always joke, like, it's like the funniest thing. If I were the Jeff Bezos of the world and just people who had all these billions of dollars, I would want to take care of my employees, because if all I truly cared about was money, the better I take care of people, the longer they live, the longer they can work, right? But for me, it's just making sure that we can, develop those habits for ourselves, create that sort of society, because we've got to have something, with global warming and all sorts of other fun stuff, we got to have something that we can pass on to our kids and to their children and just to future generations. And this culture of running ourselves and working ourselves to the bone is not going to be it. So vitality needs to be that all-encompassing word to focus on those other outside factors to be able to lift ourselves up and live healthier and better and fuller and more complete lives overall. That's what for today.
That was a whole word.
Look, I'm putting myself on mute. Bye, Danielle.
No, that was a whole word. That was a whole word from the Book of Cicely, I'm telling y'all. I absolutely love that. Was on fire, because I do feel like in a lot of ways, vitality has turned into this, don't fix it till it's broke. And then after it's broke, try not to pay attention to it. And then once you don't pay attention to it, you can just let it die. And then something else will take its place. And that's an ugly system for people of color. That is a terrifying system for us as women of color. And I think in a lot of ways, what you are saying is spot on. We cannot keep waiting, letting this wait, right? We can't just keep sitting on it and letting it fester. It needs to be preventive. So that's like the big P word for today. The letter of the alphabet today is P for preventive. I feel like that is spot on. I love everything that you said. And that kind of brings up some of these statistics that I'm going to bring up from the CDC in regards to stats on the vitality of women. CDC reports that the percentage of women age 18 and over in fair or poor health is 13.9%. That's it, y'all. That's it. There's no 20. There was no 25. There wasn't no 33%. That's not even a third. Okay? That's way opposite, to be really honest. Leading cause of death for women in the U.S., heart disease, cancer, and now COVID-19. Wow. And then of the 116 countries ranked in the 2021 Global Women's Health Index, the United States comes in 23rd place for women's health. So, right. I mean, say that out loud. That's great.
Terrible. That's what it is. It's terrible. Awful. Dismal.
Terrible. Woo! There's so many things that we can do. Preventive things that we can do to do the best that our bodies and our minds can push, right? We have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of other people. And if we can't do that on a basic, primitive level, the system is not working for us. And I just really, really want to address that part of the vitality part of this conversation, is making sure the resources, the funds, the people, P for preventive. There you go. I feel like I'm going all the way back to Sesame Street. P is for preventive. That's what we're talking about today. But on top of that conversation, I think it's really interesting that we also have a great guest who can talk to us a little bit more on the health part of that, the active part that we can do to help push that P for preventive a little bit further today. So, Cicely, would you like to introduce our guest?
All right. Today's guest is Ivory Howard. Ivory Howard understands that everyone's relationship with health and wellness is different, and she seeks to honor that with her work. She provides her clients with challenging workouts focused on strength, balance, and flexibility to help them reach their health and fitness goals. She is a certified yoga and Pilates instructor. She also received her Master of Public Health and advanced training in plant-based nutrition. She's been seen in U.S. News and World Report, Health Digest, Fit and Well, Weight Watchers, The Zoe Report, Sisters from AARP, Shout Out LA, Men's Book Atlanta, and other publications for helping others achieve their health and fitness goals. Welcome to Miss Ivory Howard.
Hey, Danielle. Hi, Cicely. How are you? It's great to be here.
Okay, so I got questions because I just feel like in a lot of areas, when you name some of these bigger names, right? Like you've worked with Health Digest, you've been in U.S. News and World Report. What are the things that they're highlighting you for? Is it because of your passion for wanting to create some change? Or is it something that's like spurred over time? People are just now acknowledging what you've been laying down for a while.
Well, I think I'm most recognized in those publications for just my mission, which is to make sure that more women know that a plant-based diet and exercise can help them prevent many of the things that we suffer from in the United States that you've already mentioned, like diabetes, stroke, cancer. All of these things are preventable. I think many people think that, it's in their genes, they can't prevent it, they can't avoid it, but you can, of course, prevent these. And if you already have one of these chronic diseases, it's important to know that you can live a long and active, healthy life.
Ooh, I love this. I know me and doing this a lot. So as I love that this kind of baseline is already kind of set, right? There's preventive things that we can do. So I kind of want to dive right into that. What methods, processes, products, services do you use for vitality on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think for me, it's really important, especially as we get older, that we make time for joy, which for me really does represent vitality, just enjoyment of your life that you are living. We have to schedule it. I mean, when you're younger, your parents and your teachers schedule it for you. But for us, as you get older, you have to make sure that you do that for yourself. And for me, like on a daily basis, that starts with morning workouts. CDC recommends 150 minutes of physical activity and 2 strength training activities a week. So that is how I like to start my day. It puts me in the best position and mood to have a fantastic day. So that's how I like to start out, with a workout. And I also like to end my day just by closing my laptop, saying that's enough. Whatever I did, it's enough. And then I like to go and have like a session in my sauna blanket. So it is a great way to like end the day, just like in caps, just having time for yourself, just to reset, relax.
Okay, tell me more about the sauna blanket. Sorry, this is like.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it so much. It's like wrapping yourself up in a sweaty burrito, but it's really a great way to just like have a mobile, I guess, sauna with you. So I do like it. It's like for a fraction of the price, but it's fantastic.
Okay, I'm totally. If there's a certain brand that you like, let us know. We'll share that.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Notes for sure. I'm all about the sauna. I love the sauna. If I could do the sauna more often,
Yeah.
I'd have to be. Woo! For people who are hesitant to get into a routine that's a little different from their norm, like maybe exercising at least one time a day, what would be kind of a baby step to kind of get them started in a routine?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to know that, you know, you may scroll through Instagram and Facebook and see all of these different workouts and routines, and that might be inspiring, but not necessarily doable, and especially not for a beginner. But know that your workout doesn't have to look like that. We know from research that you can do exercise snacks, which are like 10 to 12-minute workouts, and those are beneficial as well. So if you just want to start with something small, or if that's all you have time for in your day, know that that is beneficial towards helping you prevent many of the chronic diseases that we've already discussed. And you can definitely work up to a much longer workout. So it doesn't have to be what you see on Instagram. Find something that works for you and something that you enjoy so that you'll stick with it.
I love that you mentioned like starting small. I think a lot of us, especially when you're trying to either re-engage in fitness or just, you know, again, starting for the first time if you've never been really a fitness or exercise sort of person. I think the biggest problem that I find with myself in the past and with just people, friends, talking to people, is that we all want to bite off like more than we can chew. Like we'll say like, yeah, let's join this boot camp. And it's like, girl, I needed to do 10 minutes of a workout, not like I didn't need to jump into 60 minutes. It was too much. So then it makes us not want to do it because then it hurts, or, you know, you're sore, you're too sore the next day, or it really didn't feel good. So very heavy on the doing things you enjoy. And I think that's part of the vitality that you mentioned as well. Like you said, part of vitality for you was scheduling those things, bookending your day with things that you enjoy, so that even if you have to do stuff you don't want to do in between, that you're still able to look forward to, like, ooh, I'm gonna crawl in that sauna, that mobile sauna when I get done. And, you know, at least I started my day off with those endorphins that I needed to get through this difficult situation. But in general, like just kind of elaborating more on that, how do you define vitality? What does that look like for you, and kind of how has that changed over, or how has that view of vitality changed since becoming a Pilates or yoga instructor?
I definitely think that now that I'm a little bit older, working, paying bills, like I really think it's important for me just to like remind myself that my life is to be enjoyed. Like it's really deep enjoyment that I want for my life. And sometimes for me, that's deep belly laughs. Like when's the last time I had like a really good laugh? And I try to think about that. And if I haven't, then it's time to like schedule more joy into my day. And I just really think it takes commitment. Like you have to be committed to it in order for it to happen for you. Like it may not just happen, like you have to schedule it in. And maybe that's not, you know, as sexy as life would like to be, but sometimes you just have to do it in order to make it happen. I don't know if you guys saw season 2 of White Lotus, but then no spoilers, but I just want to mention the character Daphne. Like she is really committed to her happiness. I'm not saying that I would go about it the way that she has, but she is committed to making sure that she is happy and doing what it takes to be happy. And that's how we should go about it as well. Not the way that she did it, but of course, finding a way that works for you.
Being intentional is what you meant. Like take the good part of that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Being intentional.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so commitment for me, hashtag White Lotus, everybody. And I also love the fact that you mentioned her, because that is a good example, not necessarily the greatest example, but the greatest example of that commitment, seeing it through. I actually wanted to kind of go back a little bit further into kind of asking you areas that were kind of a deeper developmental growth for you in regards to like your own journey. Was there a point where you struggled, and where did you kind of have that pivot or the aha moment that kind of helped you push yourself forward?
Sure. I do think maybe every few years, I'm starting to notice that maybe I need to make a little bit of a correction. Sometimes you just allow other people's priorities or maybe work to get in the way of what you really want to do or how you want your life to be. And it's important to go back to your goals or maybe your bucket list and see if you are making progress towards those things. Like, are you making progress towards your own happiness? Are you being accountable to making sure that you have enjoyment and vitality in your life? And for me, that pops up in many different ways. I have quit my job before and moved to Morocco. I have quit to start my business full time. So it really just, and it can be many different things in your life. I mean, I think that we all have the impression that you have to get a job out of college and you work until you're 65. But if you want to take a sabbatical, you can do that. Like, you can work these periods of happiness into your life. So that's how it was for me, just making these corrections, making sure that I'm working towards the goals that I want to have in my life. And that included living abroad. So I moved to Morocco, and other times that included starting my own business. So maybe I wasn't working in my 9 to 5. Instead, I'm working for myself. So there are many different ways that can appear in your life. And for me, that's how it appeared for me. But just making sure that you're checking in with yourself and that you are making progress towards your goals. It might not look like, good on paper, but as long as it's working for you and it's working towards your goals, then that's all that really matters.
Woo, that was a whole word within itself. Thank you, Ivory. I love that. It doesn't have to look good on paper, ladies. He came from her first, okay? I'm just co-signing the permission slip. It does not have to look good on paper. I love that. That's fire for me, because it's for a lot of us, especially women in tech and women creatives, we go to that place, right? What do the credentials say? What's the paperwork say? What's the list, the eons that we're supposed to check boxes from? What does that say? And it doesn't have to look good on paper. It just needs to make sense in your mindset. And it has to be realistic also, I feel like, in that mindset, which I love the fact that you took that sabbatical. You didn't want to be that person that, ran the train of all the work that we have to do in this 18 to 65-year-old structure. You said, nope, check out. I'm going to much warmer weather. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I moved to Morocco. I did get another job, but it was something very different, and it gave me much more enjoyment at the time, and it gave me lots of time to travel and free time. So of course I felt renewed and I felt alive coming back to my job and having something more to offer, even because I took that time for myself.
Forgot I was on mute. But I love that. Like, I think that is so important. And again, that kind of goes into what I mentioned about like the societal structure. Like, we know that it's work from 18, sometimes earlier, sometimes 16, work from 18 to 65-ish, because now it's like 67 and a half, probably 70 one day. But working during that time frame is kind of the expectation. But very much what you said, part of that vitality is coming back to, what makes you happy. Because work in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. But I feel like even no matter how passionate about you are, your own business, someone else's like work that you're doing, that we all experience burnout. Like, there's times in our lives where things just don't ignite us anymore, right? Like, we just need a spark. We need some creativity. We need a change of scenery. So I think it's so important to, as a society, that we need to recognize those things. Like, no one can work for 50 years with the same maintained enthusiasm and joy and, all the things that you want, because like you mentioned, those corrections that you talked about, that like every few years we need to make those corrections because we're different people. We've evolved, we've grown, we've changed in some sort of way. And a lot of times the work that we're doing, once those changes take place, may not align with the person that we now are. It may have aligned with our 18-year-old self, but not our 25-year-old self, not our 30, 35, 40, etc. So I think it's so important to kind of weave that, to make sure that we honor that as a society and a culture as a whole, that we have to make space for that change that we all undergo. And we have to like kind of embrace that change too. Because I'm sure that like maybe at the time you started that job, Morocco may not have been like on your list. It may not have been like, oh yeah, I'm going to Morocco, I'm gonna quit this job, I'm gonna take some time off. That probably was not what you were thinking. You were excited. always joke, it's like, the kid in the candy store feeling when you get that job you really want and you achieve that next career goal. But then once you kind of reevaluated what makes you happy, what's vitality for you, that kind of maybe wasn't in the plan as much as it had been before. So kind of speaking of those pivots that you mentioned, and not pivots, the corrections that you mentioned, what are things, or what does self-care look like for you? And then when you kind of weave those corrections into self-care, how have you kind of come back to things that, bring you more joy? So when you were doing something like, when I'm 20, I love going to get my nails done, that was self-care. But how would you explain to other people that sometimes self-care can change? And then what does self-care look like for you? And how has that kind of changed for you as you make those small corrections every few years?
Sure. Well, for self-care, often for me, that is exercise. And I know not everyone loves exercise, but certainly find some way to incorporate physical activity or movement into your life. I just think it's important because it teaches you how to take care of your body so that it will take care of you, but also you're learning what it needs, how to care for it. It teaches you to be more confident and comfortable in your skin, and that will carry you throughout your day and your years. And certainly I've had to make those corrections with exercise as well as I age, because what you do before or do in your 20s is not going to work for you as you age. So you have to make those corrections as well. And it is a sad correction to just discover what works for you at an age and feel like, okay, that was working and it's not working now. And maybe it certainly didn't work for you in quarantine and you had to do something very different to make sure that you are getting what you need or what your body needs. But it is important to set aside that time for you where you are dedicated to movement and physical activity, because that is how your body is going to be the best that it can be. And we have to maintain that and take care of it just like we would any other machine. So that's important for me and for all of us.
A word. Thank you so much. That was awesome. And Lord, I feel you on the things that we could do in our 20s.
Yes.
Because my right knee from working out in my 20s and being a basketball player, in my younger life, is my knees screaming these days when I start doing some workouts I used to do. So very heavy on the changing those workouts.
I'm all for like any type of like light activity. It's just, once I get past that 15-20 minute mark, I'm like, okay, reassess, regroup. Let's think about what the next movie is real quick.
Definitely. That's totally fine. I mean, and certainly for me, I'm paying more attention to my heart rate rather than how hard I go in my workouts. Like if my body is working hard, that's all that I'm focused on at this time in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a couple of things that resonated with me a lot just a minute ago when you talked about, also Cicely talking about burnout, right? I love that both of you mentioned like the things that work before are not necessarily the things that are going to work now. And so I really acknowledge that in this specific space in and around women, especially women tech, women creatives, we talk about making that allotted time to process and also acknowledge the things that are not working and the things that are, and understanding what can I do so that I can get closer to the things that are working for me. Maybe that is a new workout. Maybe that is the mobile sauna. I'm really going to look up the mobile sauna after this. So, but you too, Cicely. I love that. I love the fact that like what is working, what is not working, what can I do so I can get to the things that I want. And I think that's just proper, not really proper, but best goal setting, right? And whatever goal that is, whether that's weight loss, whether that's just toning up, maybe that's just a healthier life, period. That is a huge part of the vitality that I feel like you are speaking of, Ivory. So I really love the fact that you mentioned all of these things as a part of the process of just being a healthy yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not one-dimensional. Like we do change, we do have other interests or gain other passions as we get older. And I think it's okay to explore those, even if it doesn't look like what you thought your life would have looked like at 20. Like certainly 20-year-old self doesn't know anything about what 40-year-olds do. So it's okay to change. It's okay to make those corrections and set a new goal or explore a new passion.
Okay, so I have to ask, because I'm so curious now, what did you want to be as a child growing up? Like, what did you want to be? And does it align with what you do now?
I'm not sure that I gave it much thought when I was younger. I think when I was younger, I was just more about exploring different avenues and taking different classes. But I do notice, like, as I got into high school and college, that I was interested in health and medicine. And for me at that age, not knowing anything about the world, that meant being a doctor. But I wasn't really interested in medicine. And in college, I learned a lot more about public health, and that is the field that I eventually went into. And I do love it because it's really, although we don't talk about this, it's in the business of putting medicine out of business, right? Because we are very focused on prevention and many things that we can prevent that you go to the doctor for. So I mean, I think I love it. I mean, it's revolutionary. Like, if we could do more public health, if people had more of an interest in preventative methods, then there would be less focus, certainly less of a cost in healthcare. So that would be fantastic if we were moving more towards that, or giving people more of the option to do that.
I completely agree. Wow. I love the fact that we bring this up, the educational component, the Master of Public Health, right? In advanced training in plant-based nutrition. Was this something that, as you discovered over time, plant-based nutrition, is this something that you kind of added onto your life from the get-go? Have you always been plant-based, or was it something that you just kind of discovered worked best for your body and then you just kind of went with it from there?
The more I learn about it, the more I learn how important it is for us. But no, certainly, I am from South Carolina, and we are meat-eating fools there. So that is what I grew up with. But as I moved on and just knew more about health education and plant-based living, certainly I could see how important that this was for preventing chronic diseases. And I think for me, I think when people hear that, especially if they grew up the way I grew up, that's overwhelming to even think about. But I think if it's something that you're interested in, something that you want to try, don't think that it's all or nothing. Like, you could be plant-based one day a week, you could try meatless Mondays, or slowly incorporate it into your life the way that I have. And that incorporating that could take 10 or more years. Don't feel like it has to happen overnight. Like, you're going to have to unlearn some of the things that you've been living with, and certainly learn more about plant-based living. But I do think there is no better time than now. I mean, we have so many options now.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's so many amazing options for plant-based diet, nutrition, anything. As a practicing pescatarian, I try really hard to not eat as stick to my seafood, stick to my plants, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. My husband, who's also hardcore red meat eater, is drifting away from that process as well. So to each their own. Everyone's just kind of making their own little their segue into the destination, which is to be more plant-based entirely, really. But I love the fact that people who are listening to this episode, I hope, take away from this that there's no one-all recipe for this. It really is based upon your desire, your goals, and maybe a little bit of your perseverance. There's a little bit of that. To get where you want to go. And I think this can be applied again in so many different ways, especially in realms for women in tech and women creatives, because we're all about processes. That's what we thrive on, processes and systems, right? So if we can include some newer things into these newer processes, eventually we'll get a different output. And so hopefully the goal, especially from this conversation, is to have more vitality, to be able to live longer, to live fuller, so that we can continue to do the things that we really are joyful about. Cicely, you have any comments on any of this? I know you do.
I love how you just mentioned that the change can be gradual, and that's fine too. Like we were talking about with exercise, I feel like when we're trying to make a change, especially in health, because that's always, it's a sensitive subject. There's a lot of there's some mental, psychological things that are tied to that. Like you mentioned, upbringing. So as people who grew up in the South, you know how we like to eat. Yeah. So we also know that those habits are not necessarily congruent with living with having vitality in our lives, but it's hard to break those habits when you go for Sunday dinner and this is what's at the table and granny and mom, this is how they cook. But definitely heavy on what you said about implementing those changes as you kind of go along. Like I started drinking almond milk 8 years ago. still enjoy almond milk. I've tried soy milk, not my thing. Like, I went through a couple different things. I've tried just different things, like getting away from dairy, because I know dairy is one of those things that gives me acne. It exacerbates, my skin problems because of the hormones. So just gradually kind of working those things in has been very helpful for me. And it doesn't make me feel like I have to give up, the greens with a little bit of bacon in it. It makes me feel better about when I make the decision to eat those sort of things, that I'm also okay, because I know I can have salad with arugula and, fresh spinach. And I can do, my own vinaigrette at home that I can make with olive oil and with balsamic vinegar. So I think it's all about the balance. Very similar to what you said, just all about the balance. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I'm not a ham hock kind of person, but if you like ham hocks, you can do that, and then maybe have some tofu. Like, you can mix it up just a little bit. And I think that's so important, like Danielle said, in life, and especially when we're talking about living in a way that's true to us. Like, yes, I'm probably always going to enjoy and like fried chicken. Like, my mom's fried chicken is one of my favorite things, but I just don't need to eat it every day. And I just don't, I don't have it as often as I would like, but I'm okay with that, because there's so many other amazing options. And I actually love vegetables, so that's not a problem for me. So I love that you brought up that, just making those small changes. And it could be, it could take you 10 years to become fully plant-based. It could take you 10 years or 8 years to start on the almond milk and, regularly actually enjoy it and put it in coffee and things. So I just love how so much of your focus is, again, you mentioned this, I mean, it was in your bio, that like meeting people where they're at, and instead of forcing them into change. I feel like our medical system does a lot of that forced into change sort of thing, but meeting people where they're at, to me, is like the way that we're able to encourage them to live in whatever vitality means for them. We can encourage them to live that part of their lives. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think that is really important for people to understand and feel that, they have options. It's not all or nothing. Certainly, you don't have to wait until you get into the medical system and feel like you don't have an option, that you're, rolling into surgery. But, you have options before that, certainly. And you can discuss those with your healthcare provider. And if your healthcare provider hasn't mentioned them to you, feel free to go in with your research, with your questions, and ask them.
I love that. That's extremely helpful. Rolling in ahead of time, kind of knowing and wanting to explore. Having an open mind, I think, is super important. As you all mentioned before, our societies, our communities have their own kind of stigmas in areas, and it's up to us to kind of figure out whether or not we want to keep applying them to ourselves or not. So I really love the fact that you bring that up, Ivory, because that's really important for anyone who is just wanting to have, again, that increased vitality to their life. So I kind of want to know if there's any other encouragement you want to offer our listeners who are still seeking ways to boost vitality in their lives. Clearly, movement is the key, everyone. Clearly, movement is the key. But if there's anything else that you would suggest.
I do think wherever you can, certainly pay attention to your relationships in your life, certainly with the family and friends and others, coworkers. You do spend a lot of time with them, but also any other relationships that are important to you, relationship with your money or your health, your body. Like, pay attention to those and make sure that those are on your goal list, and that you are making corrections when necessary, so that you have the life that you want to live.
I love this. This is so helpful. I've learned so much from this. How can people find you and follow you for more information about the services that you offer and the things that you want to connect with other people about in regards to health?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is ivoryhoward.com, and they can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Flatbelly Pilates.
I'm going to follow you. I'm a TikTok person, so yes. You're going to gain a new follower today. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everything that you have shared in and around this platform around vitality. I really want other people to understand that this is applicable everywhere. This is not just necessarily a women in tech conversation. This is a women in the world conversation. And I love the fact that you were able to not only share with us some resources, but also share some insights that we all can apply on an everyday basis. So I really appreciate your time and your energy with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was fantastic. Thanks, Cicely. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. And I can't get over Potbelly Pilates. I love it. That is
Yes.
so creative and I love it. And I always joke that like when I first kind of got interested in yoga and Pilates, because I like to maintain flexibility. It feels good. The stretching feels good. Like on social media, you really couldn't find anyone that looked like you, right? Like, so I'm a plus size woman, bigger woman. And I was like, but some of these moves though, like if you have a tummy, like it doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same. So I want to just send another shout out to the representation within yoga and Pilates, because it's so important to be able to see yourself. Like I was able to see, several up and coming yoga instructors, Pilates instructors, and it was really just people who were like, I just like doing this because it feels good to my body. And the same thing, like I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and I knew that this move had to be adjusted because I have boobs or I have a butt or I have a tummy that's in the way. So I just appreciate that. Like from my standpoint, like I am by no means a yogi or a Pilates master, but I do enjoy doing both. And I just love to have representation in that field, because it's very much for a long time been people that all look the same and body types that look the same, and like kind of the same rhetoric behind that. But I just really appreciate that there's some more diversity and representation in both yoga and Pilates, and in the public health space as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk a little bit about that on social media. If you are looking for a more inclusive space to practice, know that you do have options, and you're certainly a few things that you can consider when looking into a yoga studio or Pilates studio to know whether or not it's for you.
I love watching this because I'm a huge Pilates fan, and I used to be really aggressive about it back in the day, and then I had kids and life. So I'm not looking like other choices to kind of get back into that regimen and that routine. So again, exactly, Cicely, that representation matters. So when I see another woman of color doing the thing, I'm like, hey, I'm about to get on this mat. Hold on, I'm about to do this. Give me 5 minutes. I will do this. So I really am inspired by that. And I'm hoping other people will be inspired by that too and follow you on TikTok and all the socials. We'll have all of that in the show notes as well for everyone else who's in listening range of the episode. And I think we're ready to move on to our flash questionnaire to wrap up the episode.
So first, something new that you've learned in the past year.
Oh, that's weird because I learn a lot of new stuff all the time and I can't think of one at the moment. In Washington, D.C., we have black squirrels, and I've never seen a black squirrel, only in this area. But I recently learned that we have black squirrels in this area in D.C., in this neighborhood where I live, because they were a gift from Canada, and they released them in like 1920s into my neighborhood where I live now, and they're still there.
That's hilarious. I love that. That's awesome. And I was gonna ask, I was like, I think I've only heard of black squirrels in Canada. That is funny. I love that. That's a really nice American history tidbit. So thank you. Your favorite vacation or getaway spot?
Oh, let's see. That's weird. Okay. I love Lisbon, Las Vegas, and London. Those are like 3 of my favorite spots. But yeah, anywhere with the beach though, is a fantastic place to be.
Amazing. Your sweet snacks or savory snacks?
Ooh, savory. Yeah.
I like it. Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Maybe Harry Potter.
Okay.
I mean, either, but
she's like, I don't know. Digital books or physical books?
Physical books. So like paperback books in hand to read, flip through the pages.
The smell, right? Like just when you open up a new book, it's awesome. And if you could go back in time, where would you go and whom would you see?
I actually would not go back in time. Like I would really like to see the future, something different, something new. I feel like we can visit the past in books and films. And so, yeah, I really like to move forward.
I love that. Your love languages. So how you like to receive love?
Time. Yeah, that's mine.
I love that. And then last but not least, the best part of being a grown-up.
Just deciding your own schedule. Yeah. Having that freedom to decide what you do when you wake up in the morning.
I love that. I think that's literally been 90% of everyone's answers. Like, you just do what you want when you want to do it. Like, that's
And just like that, the episode ends, but the convo has just begun.
Thanks for listening to the MTG podcast.
We want to hear from you. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it a review on your listening app of choice.
Continue to follow us across MTG Social.
And look out for bonus content releases throughout the year. This podcast is produced by